Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into a fictional political assassination that feels way too real. But this isn't just a simple crime story. The analysis we're breaking down asks a much, much bigger question. When a prominent citizen is killed, could the state itself actually be held responsible for failing to protect them? Let's get into it. So, let's set the scene. The date is September 10th, 2025. Conservative activist Charlie Kirk is giving a speech at Utah Valley University. Then, out of nowhere, it all ends in tragedy. A single sniper shot cuts his life short, and the news sends absolute shockwaves across an already deeply divided country. And it all happened so fast. I mean, think about it. Kirk takes the stage at 7:15 p.m. Just 27 minutes later, the fatal shot is fired. By 8:17, he's gone. In a little over an hour, a major political figure is just silenced. It's a terrifying reminder of how vulnerable our public figures can be. Now, to really get a grip on the legal argument at the heart of our source material, we first have to understand the facts on the ground. You see, this wasn't some random act of violence. This was a targeted political assassination. And Charlie Kirk was a huge voice in conservative politics. I mean, as the founder of Turning Point USA and an advisor to former President Trump, his profile was absolutely immense. His speeches on really contentious issues made him a lightning rod for controversy and, tragically, a very high-profile target. Okay, so here's where the story takes a really interesting turn. For a figure as well-known as Kirk, in such a heated political climate, you'd think security would be ironclad, right? Well, it was shockingly lax. We're talking just 6 local police officers and a private security team that was only focused on the crowd inside the venue. No metal detectors, no rooftop sweeps, no perimeter patrols, nothing. So, the shooter was caught and charged. Case closed, right? Well, not so fast. According to the analysis we're looking at, this was way more than just a crime committed by one person. It argues this was a failure of the state itself. Let's see how they build that case. And this is where we get to the real head-scratcher of this whole thing. I mean, if a private citizen pulls the trigger, how in the world can the government be held responsible for what they did? It's a question that really forces us to look beyond just criminal law and into the world of international human rights. The whole argument hangs on this one concept called state responsibility. What that means under international law is that a state has an active duty to protect people. The government can't just sit on its hands. It has a real responsibility to take reasonable steps to prevent foreseeable violence, even if that violence comes from another citizen. And this isn't just some vague philosophical idea either. It's actually anchored in law. Specifically, Article 6 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. And the language is super direct. The right to life shall be protected by law. And here's the kicker. The United States ratified this treaty back in 1992, so it's considered binding. Now, this duty to protect isn't absolute. It doesn't mean the state has to be some kind of all-seeing psychic, right? It doesn't have to prevent every single crime from ever happening. Instead, it's measured by a legal standard that's known as due diligence. Due diligence basically just means the state has to do its homework. It comes down to 3 crucial things. First, you actually have to assess the risks by gathering intelligence. Second, you have to put security measures in place that are proportional to that risk. And third, if something does happen, you've got to conduct a proper, impartial investigation. You know, a really good way to think about due diligence is to picture a lifeguard at a swimming pool. Their job isn't just to jump in and save someone who's already drowning. No, their main job is to constantly scan the pool, spot the risks, and step in to prevent a dangerous situation before it becomes a tragedy. That's the exact same principle at play here with the state's duty. Okay, so now that we have that legal framework in our heads, let's look at the 3 specific failures that the analysis points to in the Kirk case. The first failure they identify is in risk assessment, and the analysis argues that the warning signs were everywhere. We're talking about dozens of specific threats logged against Kirk, plus an actual FBI memo that flagged elevated Antifa chatter. But these warnings were apparently downplayed, partly because of cuts to domestic extremism units. The second alleged failure, according to the source, was in prevention. And it all starts with this one number, $250 million. So what's that about? Well, that's how much federal funding was apparently sitting there available to help secure political events. But according to this analysis, that money just went completely unused in this case. So you have a known threat and you have the resources available, but the security on the ground was still minimal. And the third alleged failure gets into the investigation itself. The analysis points to a whole series of missteps that it claims undermine the whole process. A retracted FBI tweet that wrongly pointed the finger at someone, the removal of a key DOJ study, and stalled investigations into social media plots. Just a real mess. So why does all of this matter, you might be asking? Why frame this as an international law issue instead of just a regular old murder trial? Well, it's because the two approaches are going after totally different things. A domestic lawsuit, that's typically focused on individual negligence, and it's looking for damages for the family. But an international claim is way, way broader. It targets systemic failure by the state, and it's not just about money, it's about accountability and actual reform. And the stakes here are just huge. I mean, look at this. In the aftermath of the assassination, the analysis notes a documented 15% spike in threats against other public speakers. That's what you call a chilling effect. This kind of event erodes free speech and risks fueling a really dangerous cycle of political violence. But, and this is a big but, here's the reality check. Making the legal argument is one thing, actually enforcing it is a whole other ballgame. Holding a powerful nation accountable on the world stage is incredibly difficult. There are huge gaps in the system, from the fact that individuals can't bring cases to the veto power held at the UN Security Council. This source really ends on this powerful thought. The goal of making this legal argument isn't about partisan revenge or scoring political points. It's about restitution. It's about restoring the state's most fundamental duty, which is to act as a guardian for all its citizens, no matter what their political beliefs are. And that leaves us with a final, really challenging question. If a state fails in its most basic duty, and the international system can't really enforce accountability, then who can? It's a question that pushes us way beyond legal theory and into the very real limits of justice. Definitely something to think about. Thanks for watching.